Diane Whitfield's fork clinks against crystal. I'm sorry. Whose seat is this? Kayla doesn't move. 23 years old, spine straight, hands folded on the white tablecloth like she's been trained for this exact moment. Mine, Kayla says. Diane's laugh is soft, practiced, the kind meant to sound like concern instead of cruelty. Sweetheart, this table is for the principals. Maybe check with the coordinator. I'm sure there's a spot for you closer to the kitchen. A few guests chuckle. Preston, 22 and already wearing his father's watch, doesn't even look up from his phone. Probably here with catering, he mutters, just loud enough. It's 7:52 p.m. The private dining room at the Ashford Club overlooks the harbor. 16 floors up, 30 guests, one $800 million contract sitting in a leather folder at the head of the table. Kayla's dress is simple, navy, tailored, the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't ask permission. Diane's eyes drag over it once, twice, cataloging every seam like it's evidence. It's a lovely effort, Diane says, tilting her head. Really, considering. Kayla doesn't flinch. She reaches for her water glass, takes a slow sip, sets it back down without a sound. Across the table, a man in a charcoal suit watches without a word. 53, silver at the temples, hasn't touched his plate. His eyes move from his daughter's steady hands to Diane's smiling face, and something in his jaw tightens, just once, before it settles back into stillness. Careful, a voice says quietly from the corner of the room. It's Renata, the server, refilling a water glass 2 seats down. She's not looking at Diane. She's looking at Kayla. And for half a second, her hand stops moving entirely. Before this goes further, subscribe for more stories where dignity stands tall when power goes too far. Preston finally looks up. So are you like an intern? Bellamy's assistant or something? Kayla meets his eyes. She doesn't answer. Diane leans back, satisfied, already reaching for her wine. It's fine. We're not judging. Everyone starts somewhere. The man in the charcoal suit sets down his napkin. Slowly, deliberately. No one at the table notices, except Renata, whose hand is still frozen on the pitcher, and whose eyes flick, just once, toward the leather folder at the head of the table, the one with his name on it. Diane raises her glass toward the room. To new partnerships, she says, smiling at Kayla one more time. And to knowing your place. Kayla says nothing. But for the first time all night, she smiles back. 7:14 a.m. Marcus Bellamy's office looks out over the city, glass walls, the Whitfield acquisition file open across his desk. 8 months of due diligence. 3 failed negotiations before this one. Tonight ends it. One signature, $800 million, and the Whitfield hotel chain becomes his. His assistant, Denise, knocks once. Legal sent the final terms. They want your read by noon. Marcus doesn't look up. Anything change? No, same numbers, same board seats, same handshake deal Whitfield's people keep pretending isn't already done. He nods. On the corner of his desk, a photo, Kayla, maybe 8 years old, sitting on her mother's shoulders. He touches the frame once out of habit and sets it straight. Across town, Kayla stands in front of her closet, 3 dresses laid out on the bed. She picks the navy one, tailored, no logos, no statement, just clean lines that say she belongs wherever she walks in. Her phone buzzes, a text from her father. You don't have to come tonight. It's just business. She replies without hesitating. I want to be there. You've earned this. She means it. 8 months of watching her father work late, watching him rehearse numbers in the kitchen at midnight, watching him carry a company from nothing into something that could finally rival the families who never thought he belonged in the room. Tonight isn't just business. It's proof. By 6:30 p.m., Marcus is in the car, cufflinks on, contract folder resting on his knee. Kayla slides in beside him, smoothing her dress. You nervous? She asks. No, he says. Then after a pause, a little. She laughs. The same laugh her mother had, quick and warm, gone 6 years now, but never far from either of them. Marcus glances at her, something soft crossing his face, before it disappears back into focus. You know these people? Kayla asks. The Whitfields? Old money, Marcus says. The kind that doesn't ask who you are. They assume they already know. And if they're wrong? He looks out the window. Then they'll find out the hard way. The car pulls up outside the Ashford Club. Kayla catches her reflection in the window. Steady, composed, ready. She has no idea what's waiting for her at that table. Neither does Marcus. He checks his watch. 7:41 p.m., 11 minutes before Diane Whitfield opens her mouth. 11 minutes before everything in that room changes. Marcus straightens his jacket, tucks the folder under his arm, and holds the door open for his daughter like he's done 1,000 times before. Ready? He asks. Kayla nods. Neither of them looks back at the car. Diane's eyes drop to Kayla's shoes under the table. Those are cute, she says, tilting her head. Target, right? Or is it one of those look-alike brands now? Kayla doesn't answer. She reaches for her water glass instead, fingers steady, and takes a slow sip. No shame in it, Diane continues, waving a hand like she's being generous. I actually admire that. Not everyone can afford the real thing. She turns to the woman beside her, lowering her voice just enough to still be heard. It's refreshing, honestly. Very down to earth. Preston smirks into his glass. A few guests glance over, then quickly look away, unwilling to get involved. Marcus's jaw tightens. He doesn't speak. He's watching his daughter's hands, steady on the napkin in her lap, folding it once, then again, precise and controlled. So how does this work exactly? Diane asks, leaning forward now, genuinely curious in the worst way. Is this some kind of program? Bellamy brings in a young person, shows them what a real deal looks like. Very generous of him. I'm his daughter, Kayla says. Calm, flat, no heat in it at all. Diane blinks, then laughs, a short, dismissive sound. Of course you are, sweetheart. She doesn't believe it. She says it the way people say things they've already decided aren't true. Near the kitchen doors, Renata stops moving. A tray balanced on one hand. She watches the exchange without a word, her eyes narrowing slightly. Not surprise. Recognition. She's seen this before. Not this exact moment, but this pattern. The same tilt of Diane's head, the same practiced, poisonous kindness, the same way she picks apart a young woman's shoes, her dress, her presence, piece by piece, smiling the entire time. Renata's grip on the tray tightens. She glances toward the head of the table, toward Marcus, toward the leather folder sitting untouched beside his plate. And something in her expression shifts. Not quite decision. Not yet, but close. Anyway, Diane says, turning back to her wine, satisfied with herself. We're not here to talk about this. We're here for business. Kayla sets her napkin down, folded, exact, perfectly still. Right, she says quietly. Business. Marcus finally looks up, not at Diane, at Renata. For half a second, their eyes meet across the room. She looks away first. Preston sets down his glass, loud enough to draw eyes. You know what, he says, grinning at the table. Maybe she'd be more comfortable in the kitchen. No offense, just seems like her scene. A beat of silence, then a ripple of laughter, nervous, uneven, the kind that comes from people who don't want to be the one who doesn't laugh. Kayla's expression doesn't change, but her eyes flick, just once, toward her father. Marcus doesn't move. His hands stay flat on the table, his face unreadable, his eyes locked on Preston like he's studying something under glass. Preston, Diane says, but there's no real correction in it. She's smiling. Be nice. I am being nice, Preston says, still grinning. I'm being honest. There's a difference. More laughter. Quieter this time. A woman 2 seats down glances at Kayla, then quickly looks at her plate. A man across the table lifts his phone, angles it slightly, pretends to check a message while the camera catches the edge of the scene. No one stops it. Diane leans back in her chair, wine glass in hand. Honestly, she says, I don't understand why this is uncomfortable. We're just being honest. Isn't that better than pretending? Kayla's jaw tightens. Her hand curls slightly around the stem of her water glass, knuckles pale, controlled. She says nothing. The silence stretches. 30 seconds. 40. Long enough that even Preston's smile starts to falter, like he's waiting for someone, anyone, to laugh again and make it feel normal. No one does. Marcus still hasn't spoken. Denise, seated near the end of the table, shifts in her chair, eyes darting toward her boss, waiting for a signal that doesn't come. Renata, near the kitchen doors, has stopped moving entirely, tray forgotten in her hands. Diane taps her glass with one finger, filling the quiet. We should get back to the numbers, she says lightly, as if nothing happened at all. Marcus, you had the final terms ready? Marcus looks at her, says nothing for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reaches for his water glass, takes a sip, sets it down without a sound. In a minute, he says. Diane's smile flickers, just slightly, like she's noticed something in his tone she didn't expect. Kayla watches her father, waits. He still hasn't looked away from Preston. The room holds its breath. Marcus stands, unhurried, deliberate, chair scraping softly against the floor. Kayla, he says, step outside with me for a moment. Kayla rises without a word, smoothing her dress, and follows him toward the door. A few guests watch them go, whispering behind raised hands. Diane's eyes track the movement, but she doesn't stop talking, already reaching for her wine like nothing has shifted at all. In the hallway, the noise from the dining room fades to a low murmur behind the closed door. Marcus turns to face his daughter. You okay? He asks. I'm fine, Kayla says, and she means it, mostly. You didn't have to pull me out here. I know. He studies her for a moment, something unreadable behind his calm. You did nothing wrong in there. You understand that? I know that too. He nods once, like he needed to hear her say it. Wait here a minute. He walks back toward the dining room, but instead of returning to his seat, he catches Denise's eye near the end of the table and tilts his head slightly toward the hallway. She rises quietly, unnoticed by most of the room, and meets him near the doorway. The folder, Marcus says, voice low. Get it off the table before dessert comes out. Denise blinks. The contract? Marcus, we're supposed to sign tonight. I know what we're supposed to do. His tone doesn't rise. It doesn't need to. Just get it, quietly. Don't make it a thing. She hesitates a second longer, reading his face, then nods and slips back into the dining room. A minute later, she returns to the table under the pretense of refilling her water, and in one smooth motion, slides the leather folder off the table and into her bag. Diane, mid-sentence with the woman beside her, doesn't even notice it's gone. Marcus watches from the doorway, arms loose at his sides, expression calm, almost peaceful, like a man who has already made a decision and is simply waiting for the room to catch up. Kayla steps up beside him. What are you doing? Nothing yet, Marcus says. Dad. He looks at her, and for the first time all night, something flickers behind his composure. Not anger exactly, certainty. Finish your dinner, he says. Let them talk. Let them get comfortable. And then what? Marcus straightens his jacket, eyes drifting back toward the table, toward Diane's laughter carrying faintly through the open door. Then we see how comfortable they still are, he says, once dessert comes out. Kayla returns to the table first, Marcus a step behind her. Diane watches them settle back into their seats, and something in her expression recalibrates. A smile sliding back into place, practiced and bright. There she is, Diane says, reaching over to touch Kayla's arm lightly. I hope you know I meant everything as a compliment. Honestly, I think it's wonderful, someone like you being here tonight. It says a lot about how far things have come. Kayla doesn't pull away, but her eyes stay flat, unmoved. Does it? Of course, Diane says, missing the tone entirely, or choosing to. Progress, that's all I mean. Marcus says nothing. He picks up his water glass, watching Diane over the rim of it, waiting. Dessert plates arrive, small, precise, untouched by most of the table. Diane leans toward Preston as the servers move past, lowering her voice just enough that she assumes it disappears into the clatter of forks and conversation. Just remember what I told you, she murmurs. People like that need to learn their place if they want opportunities. You give them an inch, they start acting like they belong at the table. Preston smirks, glancing once toward Kayla. Noted. Near the sideboard, Renata freezes mid-step, a dessert tray balanced against her arm. She heard every word. Her eyes cut toward Diane, then toward Kayla, then toward Marcus, who is still watching, still silent, still giving no indication he's heard anything at all. Renata's hand drifts, almost without thinking, to the phone tucked in her apron pocket. She doesn't pull it out. Not yet. But her thumb presses against the outline of it through the fabric, and her jaw sets. This isn't the first time. She's heard Diane say variations of this before, at other dinners, other events, always low enough to slip past notice, always aimed at someone who couldn't afford to push back. Servers, vendors. A woman from HR who quietly disappeared from company events after asking one too many questions. Renata has stayed quiet every time. She glances at Kayla again, steady, composed, absorbing insult after insult without a single crack in her expression, and something in Renata shifts. She sets the dessert tray down at the sideboard, straightens, and for the first time all evening, doesn't return to her rounds. She's still standing there when Marcus finally sets down his glass and reaches for something in his jacket pocket. Diane doesn't notice. She's too busy smiling. Denise approaches the table again, this time without pretense. She sets a small folder beside Marcus's plate. Not the contract. Something thinner. She leans down, murmuring close to his ear. You asked for this earlier. I had it printed just in case. Marcus opens it. Inside is a single laminated badge. Bellamy Holdings, Junior Board Program, a photo of Kayla smiling in a blazer, and beneath it, printed clearly, Bellamy, Kayla, Executive Family Liaison. He doesn't react outwardly. He simply closes the folder again and sets it flat on the table in front of him, angled slightly toward the center, where anyone glancing over would see the name without needing to ask. At the same moment, Renata steps forward from the sideboard. She moves quietly, weaving between chairs like she's clearing plates, until she reaches Marcus's side. Mr. Bellamy. Her voice is low, steady despite the nerves underneath it. She holds out her phone, screen already lit, a small red recording icon visible in the corner. You should hear this before dessert's over. Marcus takes it without hesitation, angling the screen away from the table, and presses play. The sound is faint but clear enough. Diane's voice, unmistakable. People like that need to learn their place if they want opportunities. He plays it twice. His expression doesn't change, but something behind his eyes sharpens, settles, like a decision finalizing itself. How long have you worked here? He asks Renata quietly. 6 years. Has this happened before? With her? Renata glances toward Diane, still laughing with the guests beside her, oblivious. More than once, she says. Different people. Same words, basically. Nobody ever says anything back. Nobody wants to lose the job. Marcus nods slowly. You won't lose yours. He hands the phone back, but not before something in his face settles into full stillness, calm, controlled, final. He looks at Kayla, who has gone quiet beside him, watching the exchange with wide, careful eyes. Dad, she says softly. What is that? Proof, he says, that this wasn't the first time, and confirmation of something else. He taps the folder once, where the edge of the badge peeks out, her name catching the light. They still don't know who you are, he says. Not really. Kayla looks down at the folder, then back up at her father. Understanding starts to settle across her face, slow, dawning, followed by something steadier underneath it. You're going to tell them, she says. Not a question. Marcus stands, buttoning his jacket, folder in one hand, Renata's brief nod of support behind him. No, he says. I'm going to show them. He turns toward the table where Diane is mid-laugh, glass raised, utterly unaware that the room is seconds from changing completely. Marcus walks back to the table, Kayla beside him, and the folder resting in his hand feels heavier than it should for something so thin. Conversation dips as he approaches, not because anyone knows what's coming, but because something in his posture has changed. Straighter, slower, deliberate in a way that draws eyes without asking for them. He doesn't sit. He stands at the head of the table, folder still closed, and waits. Diane looks up, glass in hand, smile already forming. There you two are. We were starting to wonder. Her eyes flick toward Kayla, and something in her expression softens into false warmth. I hope you enjoyed the evening, dear. Really. I hope the... She gestures vaguely, searching for the word. The help enjoyed themselves, too. A few guests laugh softly, uncertain. Preston smirks into his glass. Marcus doesn't sit down. Diane, he says. His voice is calm, measured. It carries anyway, cutting through the low hum of conversation until the table quiets on its own. Before we finish tonight, I want to ask you something. Diane blinks, still smiling, unbothered. Of course. Marcus sets the folder down on the table. Doesn't open it yet. Just lets it sit there, catching the light. Corner of the laminated badge peeking out from beneath the cover. Do you know whose daughter you've been mocking all night? The words land flat and clear across the table. Diane's smile falters. Not gone yet, just uncertain, like she's waiting for the punchline. I'm sorry? All night, Marcus says. The shoes, the program, the kitchen comment. His eyes shift briefly to Preston, who's gone very still. The know their place comment, in case you thought no one heard that one either. The table goes silent. Not the polite, distracted silence from earlier. Full silence. Forks stop mid-air. Someone's phone, already angled subtly toward the scene, tilts just slightly higher. Diane's eyes dart toward Kayla, then back to Marcus, searching for the thread she's missing. Marcus, I don't understand what... You will, he says. He rests 2 fingers on top of the folder. Doesn't open it. Not yet. Kayla stands beside her father, calm, composed, the same stillness she's carried all night. Except now, it doesn't look like restraint. It looks like patience, like she's been waiting for exactly this moment. Preston glances at his mother, some of the color draining from his face. Mom, he says quietly. What is he talking about? Diane doesn't answer him. She's staring at the folder, at Marcus's fingers resting on top of it, at the badge edge just barely visible beneath the cover. The room holds its breath. Marcus finally looks up, meeting Diane's eyes directly for the first time all evening. Let me introduce my daughter properly, he says, since apparently no one at this table bothered to ask. Marcus opens the folder. He lifts the badge and turns it toward the table, holding it steady, so every eye can find the name printed beneath Kayla's photo. Bellamy, Kayla. My daughter, Marcus says. 23 years old, executive family liaison at Bellamy Holdings, the company that has spent 8 months negotiating to acquire yours. The silence that follows isn't quiet anymore. It's total. Someone's fork finally clatters against a plate, the sound sharp in the stillness. Diane's face goes through several things at once. Confusion, disbelief, something scrambling behind her eyes for a version of tonight where this isn't happening. That's... she starts, then stops, glancing at Kayla like she's seeing her for the first time. In a way, she is. That's not possible, Preston says, quieter now, all the earlier confidence drained out of his voice. It's very possible, Marcus says. It's also documented. He sets the badge down and holds up Renata's phone instead, thumb hovering over the screen. In case there's any confusion about tonight being some kind of misunderstanding. He presses play. Diane's own voice fills the space between them, tinny but unmistakable. People like that need to learn their place if they want opportunities. A woman 2 seats down inhales sharply. Another guest sets down her wine glass without drinking from it. Preston stares at his mother like he's never seen her before. Diane opens her mouth. Nothing comes out. Marcus lowers the phone. I've spent 8 months building something, he says, voice still even, still calm, carrying easily across the frozen table. Long enough to know exactly how this family treats people they think don't matter. His eyes move slowly across the table. Every investor, every guest, every person who laughed and looked away. Tonight I found out firsthand. He closes the folder. The deal is off, he says, effective immediately. The words land like a physical blow. Diane's face drains of color entirely. Somewhere down the table, one of the outside investors, a man who flew in specifically for tonight's signing, quietly sets down his napkin and stands, murmuring something about needing to make a call. Another follows a moment later, chair scraping back, avoiding eye contact with the Whitfields entirely. Marcus, please, Diane says, finally finding her voice, thin and cracking now. We can talk about this, privately. We are talking about it, Marcus says, publicly, since that's how you chose to treat my daughter. Kayla steps up beside him. For the first time all night, her hand finds his, fingers curling around his with quiet certainty. Diane looks at her, really looks this time, and something like shame finally breaks through the composure she's worn all evening. Preston sinks back into his chair, pale, silent, the weight of the room's collective judgment settling over him. Marcus picks up the folder, tucks it under his arm, and looks at Diane one final time. You should have asked who I was, he says quietly, before you decided who she was. He turns, Kayla's hand still in his, and walks toward the door. Behind them, the room stays frozen. 30 guests, a canceled fortune, and a silence no one dares to break first. By Monday, the story is everywhere. Not the recording itself. Marcus never releases it publicly. He doesn't need to. Word moves fast enough on its own. Investors who are in that room make calls. Those calls turn into more calls. By Wednesday, 2 of the Whitfield chain's largest remaining backers quietly withdraw their support, citing reputational concerns in careful, lawyer-approved language that fools no one. By Friday, the Whitfield board holds an emergency session. Diane isn't in the room for the vote. She's informed afterward by email that her position has been restructured, a polite word for removed. Preston keeps his seat, but barely. And only after publicly distancing himself from his mother's comments in a statement he clearly didn't write himself. Marcus reads about it once, briefly, then closes the article and doesn't look for updates again. He didn't do this for headlines. He did it because some things can't share a table with an $800 million handshake. 3 weeks later, he and Kayla returned to the Ashford Club. Same dining room. Same table, if the host is to be believed, though Kayla suspects Marcus asked for it on purpose. She wears the navy dress again, the same one Diane picked apart down to the seams. This time, she chose it on purpose too. You didn't have to wear that again, Marcus says, settling into his chair across from her. I know, Kayla says. I wanted to. The room feels different now. Not because anything around them has changed. Same chandeliers, same view of the harbor, same quiet hum of conversation from other tables. What's changed is her. She sits with her shoulders back, unhurried, unbothered by who might be watching or what they might think. A server approaches, young, unfamiliar, nothing like Renata, who Marcus quietly moved into a coordinator role at Bellamy Holdings 2 weeks ago, after Denise mentioned she'd been job hunting anyway, tired of watching this exact kind of thing happen without consequence. Anything to start? The server asks. Water's fine, Kayla says, smiling. Thank you. When the server leaves, Marcus watches his daughter for a long moment. The ease in her posture, the steadiness that was always there, but sits differently on her now. Lighter. You okay? He asks, the same question from weeks ago in a hallway just outside this room. Kayla looks around once, at the table, the chandeliers, the space where Diane once sat, and something settles fully into place behind her eyes. I'm better than okay, she says. Marcus smiles, small and quiet, and raises his water glass toward her. To new partnerships, he says, echoing Diane's toast from weeks before, but meaning something entirely different this time. Kayla laughs, warm, unguarded, her mother's laugh. and lifts her glass to meet his.